Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Jen Myhack. I'm the pastor at the United Church of Underhill. It's really a joy to serve in this community. I've been here for just over 3 years now. You may know us as the Harvest Market Church or the Clutter Barn Church. This is a community that is capable and well-versed in doing large things that have great impact in the community and bring a lot of people together. So it might not surprise you that a church such as this one would come up with a project like the one we are going to discuss tonight, which we are calling Harvest Crossing. So I am going to share some slides during the presentation tonight. So, but when we get to the Q&A, I'll close that down again so that we can again see one another face to face. Again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. So to give a little lay of the land for where we're going tonight, and I also wanted to welcome, we did send invitations to several elected officials, some of whom I believe are here tonight. So thank you again for making time for us. And we welcome your comments and questions at the end also when we get to Q&A. So to give a lay of the land, tonight we're going to provide a brief project background. We had one early preliminary meeting with neighbors way back in January of this year. We were in a different place on the project. That was kind of a more localized effort. This one, we have flung wide the gates. So we will spend some time providing some background, which may be repeat information for some, but as to how we came to this point of thinking through a project for affordable homes and open space here in Underhill Flats. So we'll get more recent updates from 2021, as well as some current plans, including some, even to say sketches might be generous, but some very rough concepts of what this project might look like. Again, we will have time for questions, and that part of the meeting will not be recorded. Whereas the presentation we're in right now is being recorded. And we'll also share some opportunities for involvement in this project beyond. So I do ask you just hold your questions to the end, or you can always type them in the chat as we go along, and then I can facilitate some question and answer at the end. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave Clift to kind of walk us through some of the background. Dave.
Dave, you're on mute.
That should work a little better. Thanks, Dan. As Jen said, my name is Dave Clift. I'm a member of the United Church of Underhill, as well as a trustee at the church. Thank you for taking time and joining us tonight. In this particular slide,
I don't know where I am. So
why don't you go sit in the living room?
In this particular slide, this outlines the property that is we're working this project on. It's about 8.5, a little more than 8.5 acres. The property does not include the entirety of this field. So if you're familiar with the field, there is approximately an acre at the very northern tip of this field that is not included in in this particular project. As you can see in this map, it shows a picture of Route 15 and Park Street, the intersection there where the United Church of Underhill is located, as well as the northernmost piece, which is adjacent to the Underhill Jericho Fire Department. It also has access next to that location onto Route 15. There is also access and can be access to Harvest Run on the southeast side of the property as well. So this gives you kind of your bearings about where the property is located. Like I said, it's about 8.6, 8.7 acres of land, and it's a long and narrow piece.
Oh, that's why they put that driveway in.
What about open space? The initial vision for this property when conversations started with the current landowner in preserving the land for the church for public use, and there were many conversations that took place around the property, And through our research, basically this is what was learned. The current owner approached the Jericho Underhill Land Trust and was hoping that the land trust would be interested in purchasing the property. This was several years ago, and the Jericho Underhill Land Trust at that time indicated that they were working with the Mills Riverside Park, and it, as the trust is concerned, is really not interested in the parcel of land that's kind of in the same neighborhood. They're managing a big piece of property at Mills Riverside, and this smaller piece of land not being adjacent to wasn't in their target for an acquisition. We also contacted the Vermont Land Trust. Their priorities are not in a village setting such as this. If you know anything about the Vermont Land Trust, their focus has been on larger agricultural and forested lands for preserving those lands and keeping them available as properties for the commitment for the land trust. At the same time, the Harvest Crossing Committee understood the opportunity for leaving the space open, but also found a great need for affordable housing in Underhill. And so now we're looking to allocate a portion of the property for that purpose. At the same time, Harvest Crossing Committee is sensitive to the open space requests. So we're looking at ways to engineer the project to leave a portion of the property undeveloped. This includes 2 acres of land that will remain open behind the church's property, as well as a vision to maintain a walking path around the perimeter of the property. As our research broadened and we looked at the affordable housing, we did a bit of research and found that there was a perspective that the town was taking for this property. And that is that in the 2021 town plan, we show some startling statistics, and especially the lack of affordable housing in Underhill. What we find is the median house value in Underhill is around $400,000, which is outside what we call as affordable. And in the last 5 years, 31 housing starts in Underhill, none of them were affordable. And what we define as affordable is this ticket of about $250,000 or less. In the past, the town has shown interest in and suggested placing affordable housing on this land. And the reasons is it's close to the village center and its amenities such as public transportation, shops, schools, and the library. And also, as a recent issue is the pandemic. And the pandemic has made affordable housing, even more difficult. As you know, the buyers are coming in from out of the state. And what that does is puts additional pressure on the upward side of value, appreciating land values. And what that does is it blocks lower income families from establishing land ownership, not only in Underhill, but all around and all across Chittenden County. So pandemic has added another reason that affordable housing needs to be refocused. What is affordable housing? Housing is considered affordable when the household spends no more than 30% of their income to live. The graph, which is to the right, what it illustrates is that housing in Underhill is prohibitive to people trying to locate to Underhill from the rest of Chittenden County or other areas of the state, as current resident income levels makes an affordable house start at $350,000. Demographically, housing at $250,000 is considered affordable. And one of the things that we've learned from residents of Underhill is due to this fact is that many have children who would like to establish and put roots into Underhill cannot, because it's become so expensive in Underhill and in Chittenden County as well. As the project vision developed over initial planning months, with the idea that affordable housing is the direction that we wanted to proceed, we believe we can meet multiple needs by maintaining open space and developing affordable housing on the property as well. The United Church of Underhill is not in the building house business, especially affordable housing, but Green Mountain Habitat for Humanity is in that business. They have experience building affordable housing and have developed ownership contracts to ensure that housing remains affordable in perpetuity. We are very glad to be partnering with them on this project.
Thanks, Dave.
Hi, everyone.
ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Stevens, and I'm with Green Mountain Habitat for Humanity. In case you're wondering what that GMHFH after my first name is on my slide, it's a long word, but it speaks a lot to the issues that Dave was just sharing with you about the lack of affordable housing in our community. Green Mountain Habitat for Humanity was formed in 1984, and even then, people were very concerned about the lack of affordable housing for working families in Chittenden County. As you may know, Chittenden County is the most expensive county in Vermont, and you may also know that Vermont has a very high cost of living. The wages generally do not match a lot of the costs, and that includes housing. You may be surprised to know that families actually purchase their homes at the cost to build the home, including the land. Many people think that Habitat for Humanity and the affiliates all across the world give homes to families, but that is not the case. And it's an important component of the Habitat philosophy that families pay the cost to build their homes. So you may be wondering, well, how is that possible and how is that affordable? Especially if I tell you that the homes appraise for almost twice the cost to build them. Just think about that for a second. Habitat families currently pay about $900 a month for their mortgage, their property taxes, and homeowners insurance. And you may also be wondering how that's possible. First of all, another important component of the Habitat model is that we believe that families will feel more engaged with their home, will have a better understanding of how their home is built if they actually help to build it. And so we require 400 hours of sweat equity for a 2-adult home helping to build their home. If there's a single adult, single parent, they are required to do 200 hours. And it's very, very important, again, for the families to really understand how their home is built and also to be a part of that process. I've had so many homeowners tell me, you know, I had never picked up a hammer before we started working on our house. And now I feel like I could actually fix things, you know, if things need to be fixed. And before I wouldn't have known what to do. So we really feel that that involvement in the building of their home is critically important. remember when I told you that the houses appraised for almost twice what it actually cost to buy the land and build them? That's partially because of another tenet of our mission, and that's that volunteers help to build the home. Now, again, we don't send people who have never built anything larger than maybe, I don't know, a birdhouse. We don't allow them to just run out and start building the house. Now, we have experienced builders who train and supervise all of the volunteers, but approximately 300 to 400 volunteer days are spent helping to build each home. It's amazing because they can do a lot of the tasks that a commercial contractor would be paying a lot of money to have someone do. And that helps to keep that price down. And in addition, I have to tell you that on the work site, when you have partner families working alongside volunteers, there's just a great spirit around the build site. The volunteers are happy to see the family whose home they're helping to build, and the partner families are often overwhelmed that people will give up days of their time to help build a house for them. It's pretty emotional, actually. But we also know that we do partner families, and we call them partner families because I think you're beginning to see a little bit of that partnership between the families and Green Mountain Habitat for Humanity. But we know we're not doing them any favors if we build a house that will have high maintenance costs, high utility bills, and things like that. So we use really good materials. And we work very, very hard to build energy efficient homes. We work closely with Efficiency Vermont from the first architectural drawing of the home to make sure that we're doing everything possible within reason, obviously, to make it energy efficient. And they work with us all the way through the building process, and then they run tests at the end. And the homes that we build, I'm not going to bore you with something called a HERS rating, H-E-R-S rating, but it means that the lower the number, the more efficient they are. The typical new home being built today by a commercial contractor has a HERS rating of about 100. Ours are running in the 40s. So remember I said the lower the number, the better it is. That's what that means. And if you can believe it or not, if you're looking at the screen, the annual heating costs of $300, that's a year in Vermont for a 3-bedroom home. So the families not only have that $900 monthly cost for all of their housing costs and insurance, but their utility bills are very, very low. I think one example that some of you who may have done some work on your own homes, especially around energy savings, is that the way that the volunteers and the partner families really, really help to make the homes energy efficient is we literally go through cases of caulking. You've probably used that around your windows maybe or whatever, but when you're building a house, there are a lot of little tiny spaces that if you can cover them up so that absolutely no air gets through, that pays in the long run. And again, using volunteers, it's a very low cost to do that. So I've tried to cram a lot of information in here. I'm open to questions at the end of our presentation, but I just want to give you a sense of what do these houses look like? If you've never seen a Habitat built house, you may wonder what they look like. And I will share with you that the lots that we buy, if any of you have bought land lately, you'll know that it is expensive. So when we buy lots, they're the ugly lots. There are no lake views. There are no mountain views. They're pretty funnily shaped lots. And these are 2 homes in Burlington. And you might be surprised. You might think, oh, they must have been built together. No, they were actually built 10 years apart. But that house design has been a very effective one for us, and it fits perfectly on those skinny little city lots that we're able to buy. And the next slide shows one of our more recent projects in South Burlington. We don't normally get so fancy as to put fencing around each house, because again, that's a cost, but I hope there's no one on the phone from South Burlington, but that was a requirement of South Burlington. They had some some requirements that we don't typically do. And these cute little gates and fences around each home are one of them. But I hope you've enjoyed this brief explanation about Habitat for Humanity and how it works. And I'm looking forward to any questions you might have for me.
Super. Thank you. My name's Dan Manns. I'm the chairperson of the Church Council, another member of the project team that's been working on this Harvest Crossing project. So I wanted to fill you in a little bit on what's been happening in 2021. First off, take a look at this slide. We've really got this very snappy logo now for the project we've called Harvest Crossing. We wanted to do a little branding. So as we talked to folks about this, as we distributed literature and put items up on our website, people would be able to identify it with that graphic image. Back in January of 2021, perhaps a few of you joined us for a community meeting and some conversation there, just as we were sort of getting going on this project, to hear about and think about what this might mean for the community and what everybody's hopes and aspirations were for this project. We've had some test pits done so that we could begin to figure out if septic systems will work on this property. And we've had some preliminary information that's positive that looks like we would be able to get septic systems in. We, in conjunction with the town of Underhill, applied for a planning grant from the Vermont Community Development Program. We did that in April. The grant was approved and there was interest by the Vermont Community Development Program in April, but they ran out of money. They had other priority projects and projects that had been submitted on prior rounds that they needed to fund. So they encouraged us to apply again, and we did. The application process involves hearing initially with the select board. Back in April, we did that because the town is technically the applicant for this grant, and the United Church of Underhill would be a subcontractor on this project. We had an environmental assessment of the parcel done. We've had the property appraised. And so we learned several things as we were going through the process of filling out this planning grant application. One issue that was raised with this property was concerns about wetlands. And so we had the state wetland expert out from the Agency of Natural Resources. She walked the property with us, said, yeah, it does look like some of this area may be wetlands. So we engaged a contractor to come and do a wetlands delineation so that we now have a better understanding and more accurate mapping of where the wetlands in this parcel are. So we're back to this overhead view of the boundaries of the property. And you can see in this slide that red, long red skinny line sort of over to the right-hand side of the property. During the wetlands delineation, two classes of wetlands were identified. Most of the wetlands on this property were class 3, and some are class 2, which is the more restrictive for building type of wetlands. And then portions of the property are not at all wetlands. The report from the consultant was that class 3 wetlands are not protected under the Vermont wetland rules, and that no state wetland permit is required for activities on class 3 wetlands. It would be more complex if we were going to try and do anything on the class 2 wetlands. And the area in red shows the kind of rough predominant area where the class 2 wetlands existed on this parcel. All this did really for us is give us data. It's data that we will use with engineers who will assist in the design and location of the housing and the infrastructure that would be necessary to support construction of homes on this parcel. So this is sort of about at the level of a rough drawing on the back of a napkin. Okay, so let's not make more of this one than there really is to be made. But if you thought about this property roughly in thirds, the upper third there, the part towards the top of the picture, is the most likely area we think where the housing could be built. You see the leg that goes over towards Route 15. That is the most likely spot we think for road access into this parcel and into where homes would be built. You can also see the area down there, if you're familiar with the road geography, the Harvest Run Road that comes up on the lower side, just to the right of the parcel. There's an access point to the property down there, but to get into the property, you'd be crossing some of the Class 2 and Class 3 wetlands. So that seems less likely as an access point than the Route 15 access. The zoning for this area is 1 acre per housing unit. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a contiguous acre around every single home. So we think the homes would likely be built in the north section. We think property to attach to the homes would be most of that middle section. And then the lower section is area that would be left entirely open. Some of it would probably be owned by the homeowners, and some of it would be purchased by the United Church of Underhill and kept as open property behind the church. So we're thinking that the property may support something like 6 to 8 housing units. We think most of the homes would probably be single family, but there might be the possibility of 1 or 2 duplexes. As I mentioned, the likely road access would be from Route 15. The church would hopefully end up owning a little bit less than 2 acres, which would be retained for open space that could be used for community gardens, recreation, our activities at Harvest Market every September. We want to try to design the property in a way that we could continue to maintain a walking path around the perimeter for use by neighbors and others. And these are all just sort of concepts and ideas that we're passing on to the engineers who are beginning the work to try and develop this into a more specific site plan with drawings and locations for how utilities would run and road access and all of that sort of thing. Let me turn it over to Sandy Wilmot now.
Thanks, Dan. Good evening. My name is Sandy Wilmot. I also am a member of the United Church of Underhill. Well, this has been really quite a journey for our church, an unpaved road, so to speak. We never started out considering building homes in the field behind the church, but you never know how things are going to end up when you head down a certain path. The more we discussed this idea, researched it, the more sure we became that this really is the right thing to do. I grew up in Underhill, and as you can imagine, there's been a few changes since then. There's lots of new people who really help make the community more diverse and interesting. Like when I was in high school, a new family moved in next door, and Sarah became one of my good friends. Underhill is really a special place. I think you'll all agree. The open fields, the views of the mountain, the forests, the community. Sometimes I wish we could just press a pause button and make it just stay the way it is. But we all know that's not realistic. For the past few years, I've also served on the Underhill Planning Commission, and I've learned a lot about housing issues. We've had some community surveys. We hired a housing consultant to help us come up with some strategies around housing and affordable housing for new families, for seniors that are hoping to stay in the community. There really aren't any easy answers. The town isn't in the business of building homes, so that has to fall to other people, especially if we want affordable homes. Land and housing prices are really making it hard for working people to buy homes, especially in Underhill. Working people like my parents, carpenters, nurses, working people like young families that are just starting out their careers, like my husband and I when we first bought our home in Underhill. All the children who grew up in Underhill, how many of them will have to move away so they can find a home or an apartment that they can afford? Another topic of great concern for the Planning Commission is really how to balance the need for new homes while really keeping the rural character of Underhill really important to a lot of the residents. So the best place for new homes really is in our existing villages where houses are already concentrated, where the services are within walking distance. This is how we're going to be able to help keep the beauty of our rural landscapes. This is how we keep our community vibrant while reducing sprawl. So this project is really about building homes in Underhill Flats Village so we can share the beauty of our town with new families. These are some of the reasons that I'm willing to take this journey of building affordable homes, and why our church is taking this journey that will make it possible for a diversity of working people to call Underhill Flats their home. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandy. I think it was really powerful for us all to hear your story of living here much of your life, all of your life. And you see this town in a way that that perhaps not all of us see it. You know, I'm one of those newcomers too. And were it not for the parsonage that comes with this job, I might also be in the position of not being able to move into a place like Underhill, which my spouse and I have just said about every day since we've moved here. We can't believe we get to live here in this great community. So, you know, if you are feeling inspired to become a part of this group, or to at least contribute to the project, there are plenty of ways to help and to get involved. No surprise to anyone will be the fundraising, because as you heard through what Catherine shared about the habitat model, so the plan is for the United Church of Underhill to purchase the land and do some preliminary engineering so that the lots can be sold to Habitat, the building lots, to be sold to Habitat affordably. So, you know, we are also pursuing grants, as has been mentioned. We're waiting to hear from one in next month or so for another $60,000. We did have one grant for $10,000 come through Habitat. And we have also already raised over $70,000 in private donations. Many of that have come through church members, but not all of it. And so we are exceedingly grateful for community members who are also walking with us in word and deed as we pursue bringing affordable homes to this lovely, lovely town. So as you can see, we've got a little ways to go to our next fundraising goal. So this is one way you can help now. But how can I help later? Oh, guess what? You'll still be able to donate, I'm sure, because we have a long way to go. But we'll also be looking for in-kind donations or expertise as we get further along. As you heard, some ideas for the open space that this church will eventually own. Could be a community garden. As Catherine mentioned, Habitat needs lots and lots of volunteers to actually build the homes when it comes to that point. Or, if you wanted to donate your time around landscaping or something to help in this project. Again, this is further down the road, but it's never too late to, or never too early, excuse me, to start thinking about it and to indicate your interest. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't realize there were animations on this slide. Also, another thing is to just get ready to welcome new neighbors. I think it will be a change for this little area here in Underhill Flats, and to be open and ready to welcome those who are arriving and who will, be over the course of several months here working on the homes. That's just another great way to be a neighbor, even if you're not picking up a hammer. You can stay informed about what's going on with this project through our church website. We do periodically post updates there. You'll see right in the middle of our site, down below, there's a Harvest Crossing block. You can click on that and see the list of our updates right there. You can send an email to landinfo@ucu.church, or if email's not your thing, you can call the church line. I think you need 802 now, 899-1722 to reach the church and just leave a message, and we'll keep you informed. And donations, if you are so interested, and we thank you, can be sent to the United Church with either land in the memo line, or online. There's a designated giving where all funds, 100% of the funds, go only to this project. So again, I just thank you so much for the support. We've received over the last couple of months letters of support from neighbors. We've heard at select board meetings what a pastor would call a testimony, but what others might call a story, about how important it is to have more affordable home options in this town.